Have you ever had something happen to you that was so terrible, so painful, so devastating that you said to yourself, if not out loud, never in a million years did I think something like this could happen to me? Have you ever said that? It's like this happens to other people. Someone I hear about things like this, but that happens a long way away, not to me. My first one was a big one. It happened in 1980. I was married at age 21. At age 24, the person that I was married to had an affair with my brother-in-law, who also was my best friend, and also the pastor of the church where I was the youth pastor. And I was completely in the dark. I had no idea. And even when I was told, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I experienced a level of pain that I didn't even know existed before. And some of you have been through things like that, where you're so devastated you don't even know how to think anymore. I could not comprehend that something like that actually happened to me. But have you ever had something take place in your life that was so great, so incredible, so awesome that you said, I never thought anything like this would ever happen to me? A big one happened for me in 1992. That's when I met and fell in love with Jana. Now, part of it had been that I had been 12 years, 1980, 1992, a lot of hurting, a lot of recovering, a lot of healing, a lot of learning to trust again. But when God brought Jana into my life, she brought a lot of fun and joy and love and happiness, and it was amazing. And I distinctly remember thinking, I can't believe something this great is finally happening to me. And that's pretty much what this new series, Not Me, is all about. Each week we're going to look at a person in the Bible who had something really big happen to them. And then I'm going to interview someone, some from here in our church and some from outside of our church, who have been through similar big life-changing experiences, some really good and some very, very hard. In week one, we're going to talk about what it's like to experience a completely life-changing conversion to Christ. And the best example of that in the Bible is a man previously known as Saul. We all know him as Paul. Here's what he writes in Galatians chapter 1. For you have heard of my previous way of life in Judaism, how I violently persecuted the church of God and tried to destroy it. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many Jews of my own age and was extremely zealous for the traditions of my ancestors. Those verses give us a couple of really important insights into the background of this guy named Paul. One, he had been a violent persecutor of Christians. And the other, he was a real up-and-coming leader among the Jews. Acts chapter 8, verse 3 says, Paul was determined to destroy the church and went from house to house, dragging both men and women off to prison. Acts chapter 26, Paul said he went from synagogue to synagogue, finding Christians and then punishing and beating them and trying to force them to blaspheme the name of Christ. He said, in my obsession against them, I even went to foreign cities to persecute them. Now, why did Paul do this? I mean, this guy is not a lunatic. He's not like a Hell's Angel or a Rambo character, you know. He's a highly educated guy, very, very religious, a deeply devoted Jew. Why was he carrying on like that? Well, since the time of Abraham, the Jews had anxiously looked forward to the coming of their long-awaited Messiah. They believed that he was going to be a great political leader who would overthrow the Roman oppression that they were under, Israel was under, and become the most powerful and prosperous nation on earth. Well, that was their perception, but some of their perception was off. And so when Jesus came, not as a powerful political ruler, but as a humble servant and teacher, the vast majority of Jewish people, because of their inaccurate perceived ideas, they rejected Jesus. He didn't seem to match up with what they thought the Jewish Messiah was going to be. However, Christ's popularity was really beginning to grow around Jerusalem. First, there were 3,000 converts on the day of Pentecost. Later, it says there were 5,000. And pretty soon, there was too many to count. It just called them multitudes. So thousands and thousands and thousands of Jewish people around Jerusalem were becoming followers of Christ. So Jesus, this would-be Messiah, was quickly becoming the happening thing in Judea. And obviously, the Jewish religious leaders were greatly concerned about this. They thought Jesus was just a revolutionary. Here were many of their people now claiming that Jesus was, in fact, the long-awaited Messiah and Savior. And the religious leaders were upset and angry. They thought their people were being deceived. And so Paul, being among the most devoted of the Jewish leaders, felt literally compelled to defend his faith and fight against this, what he believed to be a lie. And so he went out kind of like a religious vigilante, persecuting the church, trying to put an end to this Jesus mania. Now, before his conversion, it said that he was advancing in Judaism beyond many Jews his age. Growing up, Paul had always been the guy voted, most likely to succeed. Or of all the young guys, he would have been had the most potential. Paul's name would have been at the top of the list of the who's who in Israel. In contrast, when I was in college, my name was on the list of who's he. So, slightly different. Paul was a Pharisee. He was the most respected young rabbi of his day, and he was on his way to becoming one of the most highly influential Jewish religious leaders. Until one day, he was on his way to persecute some Christians, and he had a heart-to-heart encounter with Jesus himself. And what resulted was not merely changing his religious affiliation. This was an entire life transformation. He went from trying to defeat and destroy Christianity to becoming Christianity's most determined defender and propagator. As 2 Corinthians 5:17 in the Living Bible puts it, when someone becomes a Christian, they become a brand new person inside. They're not the same anymore. A whole different new life has begun. And that's what happened with Paul. Well, today we're going to hear from someone who also experienced an incredible life-changing conversion to Christ. And this is someone that most of you know, but maybe don't know as well as you think you might. This is the first of 6 people that we're going to hear from during this series. And the first one is Donna Lee. Let's have Donna Lee come on up. No notes or anything, huh?
No.
Your life story.
I'm an excellent speaker.
You sound like Rain Man going, I'm an excellent driver.
I'm an excellent driver.
In the driveway. Is that on okay, Steve?
Okay.
A little more. I mean, say something so they can hear it.
Oh, hello.
They're
You
looking
said
okay.
it's good.
This is going to be a challenging interview, I can tell from the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So why don't you tell us, because, everybody here knows you and sees you around, but I bet most people don't know much of your story. So why don't you tell everybody where you grew up and what your family was like, and did you guys go to church and stuff like that?
I grew up in Elk City and Blackwell. We did go to church, Methodist church, and I went to church until I was 17. And then I went to college and pretty much quit going to church.
We have a few pictures, I think, of you and your folks.
Yes, that's my mom and dad.
And this is
And then my sisters and I at Corpus Christi. I'm the baby. I'm the young one.
Baby of the family. All
The
right.
cute girl.
We have a couple more.
And there's my dad and my sisters, all dressed alike. Bless their hearts. And I'm still the baby. And that is me and my dog Lady. And then that's my high school senior picture.
All right. Let's go back to your growing up in childhood. Was everything normal? Was there
It was pretty normal.
alcoholism in your house?
well,
or was there
only
anything
me,
like that?
but,
No, I
nobody-
know.
no.
That was later. That was later.
Yeah,
Talking about your
okay.
childhood. Everything was okay?
Everything was good.
Everything
My dad was a pastor until I was 6, and my mother said, gee, I didn't have 3 kids to raise by myself, so I suggest you pursue a new career. And he did. And he started curb service grocery stores called Toot and Tell.
It sounded like that, eat and get gas here or
Remember?
something like that. Toot and tell.
Toot and Tell. And people pulled up and honked, and somebody went out and waited.
Man, he was way ahead of his time there.
Yeah.
Amazon's trying that stuff now.
Well, yeah, it was in the 50s, so yeah, he was pretty ahead of his time.
So then you got to high school and maybe had a short little rebellious era.
Oh, not in high school. No. I wasn't at all rebellious.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't rebellious until college.
So you told me the other day you had a 4-year scholarship to Duke University.
I did, for parapsychology, which is like, ESP, The Sixth Sense.
ESPN?
ESPN, yeah.
Okay. And so you went out there for the summer and then decided
I
you
went
didn't
out
want to
there
do
for
that.
the summer. I think the only reason I got it is because they had one left, and I applied, and I got it. So I went to...
You got a 4-year scholarship to Duke. You must have been smart back then.
I can knock you off the stage. I'm just saying.
Okay, so then
So,
you
and
came
I
back
went for the summer,
and went to OSU.
I went to OSU, yes.
Okay, so when did you start leaving the Christian upbringing that you had and veer off into...
After my first semester at OSU.
So what happened?
I eloped. I got married. It was my English final for the semester. It was in December, and my boyfriend Richard, and he came up on a cycle, and we went to Joplin, Missouri, and got married. And then on the way back, we went back by to get his cycle because I was afraid I'd be grounded when I got home. I'm married, and I'm thinking I'm going to be grounded when I get home. So
you eloped. Your folks don't know.
my folks don't know.
Would they have been against this? Or
Oh, yeah. I was 18. Yeah, they would have been against it. So on the way back from between Stillwater and Ponca City, Richard got hit by a drunk driver and was killed.
And he was on a...
He was on a cycle. I was
on a
behind him.
motorcycle.
Yes. So that's kind of when...
So you were married for 3 hours?
3 hours, 45 minutes, I think. It lasted a while. But, yeah, wasn't long.
So you were traveling behind him. Did you witness this?
Yes, I witnessed it because the guy passed me, and I just don't think he saw Richard, and he hit him. And he was decapitated. So it was like, it was bad. And that's kind of when I started becoming rebellious and quit going to church or believing really in God. I didn't not believe in God. I just didn't really believe in him either. I mean, it was just kind of...
Were you mad at God about this, or?
Well, I was pretty mad, yeah. And I was pretty messed up. I mean, I went to get his helmet, and so I was kind of messed up. Had to get into therapy and stuff like that because it was pretty gory. And then I went to Colorado to school. I went away because I didn't want to tell my parents why I was so upset.
So they didn't know
They
you...
never knew I eloped. No, I never told anybody until my parents died.
Okay. So then you went to Colorado.
Colorado State.
Eventually came
One
back.
semester, came back to OSU and graduated from OSU in '73 and moved to Norman. I don't know why I did that.
So how you felt God leading you here home to the, So how were you dealing with this tragedy?
Well, I smoked a lot of pot. I smoked a lot of pot.
Had you done that before?
No.
This
No, never had.
had so you weren't rebellious or you didn't do any crazy stuff?
Not in
necessarily
high school
growing
or
up?
anything, no. I was a really good kid.
So how would you describe the state of mind you were in from age 18 to 22 or something?
Stoned, pretty much. I mean, I was kind of mad. I was kind of, then I was rebellious. I kind of became a hippie. I wore tie-dye. I was just kind of a hippie, dope-smoking hippie heathen. I don't know.
That's what she told me later when she says, I'm just a dope-smoking hippie heathen. It's like,
Well, I was. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I was.
so, some people have terrible things happen in their life, and it makes them turn to God.
Yeah,
And
that's
some
true.
people have terrible things happen in their life, and they turn away from
And
God.
I turned away.
And that's what you did.
For sure.
Were your parents, did they know all the stuff that you were doing and involved in? Or?
I don't think they knew that I was smoking a lot of pot. Now, my mother would come visit, and there would be like, roach clips with a big old.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, right. And she'd look at it, and then she'd. Yeah, you know what it is. So things like that. I mean, she kind of knew, but not exactly really.
So your parents, they knew Richard died though, right?
They knew Richard died, and they knew we were dating, but they didn't know we were going to
Okay.
elope and get married and stuff. I mean, they knew I was upset, but they didn't really realize how, to the extent.
Donna told me that the other day we were talking about it, she said December the 9th
Uh-huh.
would have been 48-year anniversary. When certain things happen on certain dates, they stay with you for a long time, and sometimes that's good, that we don't forget, but other times it can be really, really painful and bring up things that you thought maybe you were over, and stuff like that.
Well, I really had another date after that, so I've always remembered that. No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, so you moved to Norman, and you start working out at what used to be called Griffin.
Yes, it's
Because
still called Griffin.
you got your degree in social work.
Yeah,
and
I
then-
got a degree in English Lit.
Okay, so how did you get involved doing that then?
Well, I started working night shift going to nursing school
Okay.
at OU. And then I passed out a lot, so they suggested I pursue a new career. And
You passed out like at the sight of blood or something?
well, mainly when they were like in the surgical rotation, when they start cauterizing, they cut somebody and then they cauterize it, they burn it to stop the bleeding. And it's just really, it smells it's a
Okay,
very
yeah,
offensive.
that's that's enough information.
So
on that.
I got a degree in nutrition. So because I had 2 degrees, they let me become a social worker.
That's how it goes.
We
a
were
lot of
pretty
times.
desperate in those days for social workers, I guess. I don't know.
So you were working out there. Were you working with patients directly, or were
Oh,
you
yeah.
working more of an administrative deal?
No, I worked with the patients.
Okay, so that's what enabled you and I to kind of have a connection.
Yeah,
when we
because I
first
knew
met,
right
'cause
away he is so crazy.
Yeah, I
and
needed-
so
I needed-
took you under my wing.
I needed
yes.
help. So that's where you met Mary.
That's where I met Mary.
Yeah, she was a patient.
She was a patient.
She worked there also. Okay, so from the time you grow up and you have this probably pretty idyllic childhood and stuff. You got
Pretty
good
good.
parents, they're together, and nothing terrible's happening in your home, and then you have this horrible, horrible experience, and then you're kind of reeling from that, and doing things that are helping you maybe kind of cope or just forget about it, or whatever, to have fun, to have some fun in your life. So how long was it until finally someone invited you to come to our church? We were at Boydenberry at that time. How
It
many
was
years was it?
1986 is when I first was invited to come to church.
1986.
So I started working at Griffin at 73. I worked night shift for 4 years. Then I worked in the health office for several years, and then I worked in records, and then I worked as a social worker. I mean, I did many things at Griffin. And then in 86, a girl named Teresa invited me to New Life,
And what?
and I came.
And did you come? She just said, "Will you come?" And you came.
Well, no, not really. I had biked a lot. I had bicycled a lot. So I had a really bad bike wreck, and I couldn't bicycle, so she came and picked me up one Sunday, and I came.
So you normally rode your bike on Sunday or Saturday,
Saturday and
whatever.
Sundays, yeah.
So you had a wreck, couldn't ride bikes for a few weeks. So then she said, "Now's the opportunity.
Yes,
you
and I
can't
came.
ride bikes," and you came. And so why did you come? Why did you even say yes?
I don't know. I just did. I mean, I just had no other excuse because I always like, oh, I bike on Sundays, And then it was like, well, you can't bike now, so I'm picking you up. So she did. And her family picked me up and brought me.
Okay, so you show up at our church. We're in the farmhouse.
Yes.
You just moved into the farmhouse, maybe 6 months or maybe
Yeah,
a year.
not long.
So what did you think when you showed up? What did you think of what you saw or experienced?
I thought you might have TB. You coughed a lot. You had secrets on your Bible, and you were very thin. I'm like, he's got TB, I think. I mean, this guy. I mean, you were really thin, really thin.
Right.
And then you didn't speak that Sunday. Steve May did.
Oh,
And the
so-
talk was on grace. And he said, grace is big. And I'm like, well, that was really good, but I'm not coming back. And it was a good church.
So
and
did I
liked
do the
it. I liked
music or do
music.
anything?
You mainly coughed. I don't think you did the music. I mean, you were sick.
Okay, so when you so when you left, did you leave thinking, boy, I want to come back there, or
Well, no, I just remember thinking I really liked it a whole lot, but I'm not going back. And so the whole next week, I'm like, I'm not going back, I'm not going back. And then I thought, that's really stupid, so I went back. And then I kept
so
coming
did
back.
she come by and pick you up this
No,
time?
I
or-
just went on my own.
Okay, so you went on your own.
And
You
I
ca-
just kept coming back. And
so
then
why,
Kay Fair
why did you
said,
keep coming back, though?
I'm not real bright.
You got a
liked it.
scholarship to Duke.
I really liked it. I'm like, it's the first time I'd heard God talked about in that way, and that, God was loving and God was forgiving. And I'd done some bad things, and I wasn't really sure if I really wanted to even be with God or believe in God, but I guess it was just because I was raised that way, and then I just kind of started coming back and kind of realized, I do need God in my life. And so I think I'll keep coming, and I did.
And so then you met Kay.
I met Kay
Fair.
Fair, who did she discipled me, one-on-one discipleship. You guys were doing that Navigator thing back then. And so I did that for like 2 years, I think. And when, we were really different. I mean, she was very, I don't know what to say. We were so different. And later on, I found out she decided that she was going to quit discipling me because she just kind of thought I was a lost cause. But she stuck with me, so it
So
helped.
didn't back then sometimes if people would come to church, we'd go visit, we'd go to their house.
You
know?
can't. Oh yeah. Oh.
And so she opens the door, and this big cloud of green smoke comes out.
Well, I thought one of my friends was coming over because I'd just gotten some, really good pot, and I called my friend and said, "Come over," and so then you show up, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's that little pastor." So I slammed the door shut, and then.
I don't remember that, but I do remember the cloud
But I
of
let you
smoke.
in because you were going incense, and I'm like, yeah, that's the ticket.
So when did you feel like you like said, did you ever come to a point where you said, okay, God, I'm going to give my life to you? I mean, how and when sort of did that
Well,
happen?
just like probably within 2 months. Kay always had me reading different verses and reading parts, and Teresa dragged me to a Bible study at Steve May's house, and then I listened to the tape on baptism, and you and I met for lunch about baptism, and I remember telling you, I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it says Donna Lee don't smoke dope. And so we argued about that a while. And you suggested I should probably quit because, my body's a holy temple and I wasn't supposed to be smoking pot. And it was illegal and all,
Mm-hmm.
Not now, huh? Oh.
It is illegal unless you have a medical condition, which I think you
I have
do.
a medical
I
condition.
think you do. This is not going the way that this is planned to go here. I'm sure it's leaving everyone with the right impression. Okay, so, but earlier I talked about Paul, and he had this a change of life that was just incredible. I mean, he was a very religious person. He remained a spiritual person.
Right.
That was still the core of his life. It was Judaism,
Right.
and it was following Jesus, So yours is a little different, but you had your lifestyle from age 17 through 1986, however you would have
Right.
old you would have been at that time, was not religious. It wasn't spiritual.
It
Didn't
was
have
not
really
at
God
all.
in it. And then you flip this thing over, and suddenly
And I
God
got
and church and
baptized.
serving God and caring about people who were far from God, that became the consuming kind of thing of your life. How did that happen?
Well, I think just spending a lot of time in the Bible. I mean, I learned from you to have a daily time alone with God. and I did that, and I started serving in the church, and I first served in the tape ministry, and then as a greeter, and then in drama and music. I started working for the church part-time, because I worked at the Love Light, remember, part-time, and I started working for the church. And then I think it was just probably how I was raised, and I just finally came back. And then again, the type of church that you had was so different than what I remembered growing up. And it was very comfortable. The talks were very relevant. I could just use it in my life every day. And I changed a lot. Mary Larson knows that from Griffin. And then she started coming. So, I mean, I just kind of gave my heart to God. And
Well, early on, after I met Donna, I could tell that she had some, I guess, good people skills, because she's part sanguine. She, interacts with people, and so sometimes, she would tell me, it's like, someone came up to you and said, "Great job on your talk," and you said, "Nah, it wasn't any good," or whatever. And I wasn't that good sometimes interacting with people, because I'm sort of relationally slow. And it reminded me when she said she worked for the church, because, people were sort of attracted to her because she cares about people. And I care about people, but I don't show it in kind of the same way or whatever. So this girl comes into this office. She was like a college student type person. She came in and she looked real sad, and I just said, "Man, you look like your boyfriend just dumped you like a bad transmission." And she started crying and ran out. And that was why she had come to the office, was to talk to Donna, because her boyfriend had just dumped her like a bad transmission. So Donna has helped me a lot over the years to become. You think it's bad now? Okay.
oh my gosh,
It was,
he's so much better.
so Donna has helped me a lot over the years. She would come to me and say, "I know you love God and everything, and I know you mean well, I know your heart's in the right place, but," and she would tell me things that were very helpful, that for some reason, I was raised, I had great parents. Most of you guys have met my mom. How
Yeah.
did I wind up? I don't know. But she helped me to be able to communicate my concern for people better than I had love for people, but I just
You
didn't.
just couldn't show
I
it.
didn't
You're
show
very
it very-
introverted, so you
Yeah,
just
I didn't show
really.
it. Didn't show it very well,
Yeah.
like I had hoped to. So as you look back on your life from your childhood, which was really pretty good, and then what happened when you were 18, which is got to be one of those life-changing moments in anybody's, if you look at a continuum of anybody's life, if something like that happens, that's pretty severe, pretty traumatic. And then you go to OSU, and then you move here, and you start to work, and then Teresa Cossey invites you to the church, and then you come, and blah, blah, blah. Now, all these years later, Donna's been really heavily involved, and she kind of has a sense that I finally figured out about maybe 25 years ago. How long have you been at the church? 1986, 32 years? Wow. That I would ask her something about, like, something in the church, some problem or some issue, and she would say, "Well, I think we ought to blah, blah, blah," whatever it was. And I found out that about 19 times out of 20, in retrospect, I'd look back on it, and she was right. So I was like, I need Donna around all the time, so I could run stuff by her, because it just was uncanny. It was like that Rain Man where he dropped the toothpicks, and it's like,
You called me Rain Man twice.
I know. But it was like that. It was like she didn't have any experience on some of this stuff, and she'd go, "I think you should handle it like this." And if I did, it worked great every time, and if I didn't, it didn't. And it was just like, how weird is that? And so she just had this gift of discernment or something that I had never seen anything like that before. And it's continued all these years, and it's been very, very helpful. And
Thank you.
Donna and we always talk about being brother from a different mother sort of deal, and Donna has been like my much older sister to me all these years. Much older. But, I admire a lot about Donna. I think we have some pictures of her and her mom, Chris. I wanted to show everybody.
Oh, little mama.
Yeah, and her mother had Alzheimer's, and for 10 years lived with Donna, and Donna took care of her for 10 years as Donna worked and had some home help and whatever, but for 10 years took care of her mother. And I really admired, about everything I've ever seen in Donna. I have admired. Sometimes she can be very blunt, which I'm like more finesse with my words.
Yeah, right.
But Donna, she will out of love, and sometimes what you usually would lead with, I love you, and it's like, oh boy, I know something's coming, But Donna has helped me many, many, many times over the years before I met Jana, and even when I met Jana, and she was like going, Jana's the one. Don't screw this up. She even helped me with that. But she's kind of like a part of our family. Comes over for Christmas stuff and things like that. And she means a lot to me. She means a lot to this church. And I'll bet that at some point in there, after that happened, after you eloped, and you probably said to yourself something along the lines of, well, I never thought something like this would happen to me. And yet, God eventually, worked in your life in a way to bring you around and to change the whole course of your life, and not just your life, but the life of many, many people that have been helped by our church over the years, because whatever little success I had, Donna had a whole lot to do with it behind the scenes, even though most people didn't know. She had a lot to do with it. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we have our closing prayer, and we'll all go. Let's give Donna a big hand for being willing to come up and do this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, why don't we all stand together and we'll have our closing prayer. Lord, some of us go through life, and maybe the very first quarter of our life is really, really difficult. And then we get into the second quarter of our life and it's better, or maybe the second half of our life is better, or maybe the second half is more difficult than the first half. But Lord, all of us, sooner or later, are going to run into obstacles. We're going to run into tragedies. Or tragedies are going to run into us, come into our lives, unwanted, unplanned. And Lord, it's in those times when our faith and our marriages and our families and our friendships are most tested. So God, I pray that throughout this series we'll learn that, sometimes we feel like I'm the only one who suffers. I'm the only one who's had terrible losses. I'm the only one, and no one else understands. Lord, help us to understand that you always know, and you always care. You read our hearts, and you know what we need. And that, God, you're faithful. And no matter how far, how long we run from you or drift from you or are mad at you, that you're always there with open arms to welcome us back. Lord, I'm grateful for Donna's life and for what she's meant to me in this church. And we pray that she would have continued health and happiness and effectiveness in serving you. Lord, I'm grateful for our church family and the chance to share our successes as well as our failures and as our grief from time to time, and that we're all in this together with you. And I'm thankful for that, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, everybody, thanks for coming. We will see you next week.